Hey everyone, Wayne Fox here. This thing finally showed up. I ordered this Epson p900. Well, I tried to order it, I think last March, maybe April. Not in stock, nobody had them. I kept looking around for them. I tried to order it myself through my dealership, couldn't get one. And I've been waiting ever since. I wanted to replace my P5000. I just don't need it. It's a little big. I've got a 9570, which handles all my roll paper stuff. And I wanted something that could handle 7x10 art cards a little better. I sell quite a few of those. And so I thought, I'm going to go ahead and get this and sell the P5000. Well, finally, 10 months later, here it is. Epson's definitely had some challenges through the pandemic, as a lot of people have. Hopefully this means they're getting into production and they'll be more available. Well, I have it out of the box. I didn't see any sense in showing the whole process. Again, make sure you get all the blue tape off. The design is nice. It's very compact. I like the way that it folds up when you're not using it. It's about 20% smaller than the previous printer, the P800 and 600 respectively. From what I'm told, the new P900 is about the same size as the old P600. So you get a 17-inch printer in the same footprint. Couple of downsides to that, and we'll get to those in a minute. What I thought I would do is kind of go over a few of the physical things. It has a fairly large touch screen, which can tip up like this, and we'll get to that in a minute. You can open up the paper tray, and you'll notice that both the input and the output tray have this kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, ribbed design. And I assume that's for weight because it is lighter than the last printer. And it's also pretty rigid. It's pretty nice. One thing I did notice is that the paper guides make you put the paper in the middle, whereas in the previous printers, you've always put the paper to one side. And I don't know if that's a big deal, but it's kind of nice. And I don't know if it actually makes a lot of difference in the long run. It has a pull-out tray, which gives you access to the straight paper path through. So what I thought I would do now is let's go ahead and get it started up and get the inks loaded. And then we'll talk about a couple of the other features while the inks are loading. One thing is kind of nice is the ink itself comes in this nice little box. Now, one of the disadvantages of this printer is the ink cartridges are smaller to get the smaller footprint. And so the ink cartridges are only 50 milliliter. The old printer, the cartridges are 80 milliliter. That actually means your ink is going to be a little more expensive than a P800. And, everybody complains about ink costs a lot anyway. I've always had the philosophy that, my ink costs are what they are, and I charge plenty for my prints. That's really a non-factor for me. Other people, it might feel differently. That's fine. Now, the other thing that I've been told, and I can't verify this, somebody says that the starter cartridges are only 25 milliliter, and then the replacements are 50. I think there'll be plenty of ink. One nice feature is, since we don't have to switch between matte and photo black, that will save a lot of light black ink. In the old printers, it would charge the photo black and the light black channel, then it would have to switch so it could charge the matte black line. Well, that would recharge the light black channel. So you literally would almost be out of light black ink by the time you started. With this printer, once we get the ink started, it's all gonna have the same amount of ink. And we'll be able to print, I think, quite a few prints before we have to buy ink. One nice thing about the box is if you need to shake these before you use them. And what I do is I'm just gonna shake them in the box. You wanna hold it flat, very gentle, probably around 20, 25, 30 seconds. And then what I usually do is I just turn it over and now I'll shake it kind of the other way. You don't wanna be too violent with this. Most of these ink cartridges probably haven't been sitting that long because it's such a new printer. We'll open up the panel. And it's pretty straightforward. I'm just gonna put one in and then we'll pause the video and I won't show you how to put every one of them in. Basically, you just tear it open. This is MK, so you wanna find the MK. You're gonna push it in. Oh, it looks like we have to drop this down as well. There we go. You're gonna push it in to hear a firm click, and then you're good to go. So now we've got the ink cartridge installed. And when we shut the cover, it will recognize that, and now it's going to charge. This process will take probably 30 minutes or so. Okay, well that didn't take as long as I thought it would. It only took about 15 minutes. The printer's ready to go. First thing I always do is just go ahead and print a nozzle check just to make sure that nothing went wrong. Let's load some paper. I have some regular typing paper here. I found that the way that this loads, I actually really like it, because what you do is you just spread the guides all the way apart, drop your paper somewhere in the middle. Notice as soon as I do, it's asking me to put in a paper type. Then I just move it and it'll center the paper up. You know, if I drop it over here, for example, it'll just kind of self-center. So it's a really nice feature. Notice here it tells me how many sheets of the type of paper. So if I go the paper type, and we'll put in plain paper, and then the paper size, US ANSI 8.5 by 11. And now it tells me I can put in 120 sheets at one time in the feeder if I want to with this thin of a paper. Let's go back to home, and we're going to go to menu, maintenance, and then at the top it says print head nozzle check. So we'll just do that. Start. While it's doing that, let's talk real quickly about the inks here. You can see my ink levels. You can also get to that another way, but not while it's printing. It's giving me a print dialog box here, and that's actually also a progress bar. So later when we do a long job, we'll see that. You'll notice the ink levels are about, I would say, 25% full. In the large printers, when you put in a cartridge, it shows full regardless of the size of the cartridge. So if I put in a 350 or a 150 or a 700, the bar is full. And so to understand how much ink's left, I have to understand what size cartridges I've used. Now, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and assume that what's going on here, let's see, there we go, is because this only holds 50 milliliter cartridges, based on the level here, I'm assuming that's showing me how much in relation to 50 milliliters. I might say millimeters once in a while, I do that. And the reason I say that is because if this was a 25 milliliter cartridge and it's now 60% empty, that would mean we would have run around 300 milliliters of ink to get this thing charged. There's just not that much tubing here. As you can see, the maintenance tank is barely registering anything at all. And so I think that right now, this gives me a pretty good indication that I have about probably, 18 to 19 milliliters of color of ink left in most of these cartridges. You'll notice that the light gray and the gray have similar levels. Now, I have printed quite a few prints in testing this, and so you see they've dropped a little bit, but that's pretty typical. You're always going to use light gray and gray, probably the two most used colors when you do your printing, because that's how it creates less saturated color by mixing in some gray. Anyway, here's our nozzle check. Looks really good. One thing that I might mention is what the printer does, and I don't know if I can get this to focus or not. What the printer does is it double prints the nozzle, so it prints twice, and that makes it really dark. If I compare this to, for example, my 9570, it's actually hard to see because it only prints one time. So it's kind of nice. The yellow is still hard to see just because it's so light, and I always use some really strong reading glasses to double check it. So it looks like we're good to go. So the next thing we want to do, I always send a target print. Now, I already did this yesterday, so I'm not going to go through it. We're going to print a different version of it. This is the target print that I typically like to use. This is the one that Jack Flesher did, and I guess maybe this is the right way to hold it. Jack Flesher, this is a modified version of Bill Atkinson's target, which is a really good one. If you're not sure what I'm talking about here, I have a 7-part video on color management, and part 6 talks about the advantages of using a file like this to evaluate your printer and to try to get your color management set up. So anyway, we printed this yesterday at the max settings, and what I want to do now is I want to print the same thing at a lower quality setting so we can compare the two. I've also printed the same thing on my 9570, and I can kind of look through the three. What I think we'll find is based on the quality setting that you really won't use the max setting very often. And we'll talk about what's going on there as we get into that. So let's just jump into Lightroom and send a file or send this file at a lower quality setting, and then we can compare how long it takes to print by going into the menu here. Okay, so I'm in Lightroom, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here just to try to keep this video from getting too long. Here's the file we want to print. We'll select that, go to the print module. I've already set up my template, and just real quickly, we'll just show this. I've connected this printer using USB, and my Wi-Fi is a little flaky lately. So we just make sure we've selected that. And the only reason I want to show this is I want to talk briefly about the printer settings. First of all, there's one new choice here, use printer settings. So if I set up a paper types in the printer itself, like we did a minute ago with the typing paper, I can just tell the printer driver to use whatever the printer has loaded. I don't have to put all that in. That could be really handy if you're doing a lot of different printing and off and on. Or you can go ahead and you can go to the paper size and set it. If I put a paper type in here, it will override whatever's put in the printer. All right. I'm not sure what the little triangle means, so we'll have to try to figure that out. Anyway, what I really wanted to talk about was this the quality options. You'll see that I have this menu here, and there are 5 choices plus a quality option. As I move each choice, you'll see that it changes the different settings, and basically each setting is one notch on this little indicator. And what I want to do is talk a little bit about what the differences are. And of course, if I go to the bottom setting, I can override anything. So for example, if I go to high quality, that's black enhanced overcoats turned on, it's resolution 1440. If I go to quality options, for example, I can say, no, I don't want the black overcoat, but I still want to use 1440 at photo. Now, if we look at the different options with this particular paper, as you change papers, it will change the options based on what the paper is capable of. For example, if you have a matte paper, you're not going to get the choice of 5760. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the head in just a minute, but one of the new features of this head, it can make the dots it spits out can be as little as 1.5 picoliters, which is the p900 is 3.5 picoliters. And because of that, it can create this ultra fine resolution. What we have to understand is how you gain the resolution vertically. You'll notice that 1440 is a 1440 resolution, and I'm not sure what the horizontal resolution is. You'll notice these two, the only difference is, let's go back here. You'll notice that these two, the only difference is standard has no black overcoat. This one has black overcoat. This one also says photo 1440. And then we jump all the way to 5760. And that's kind of one of the problems that I have. So the way the printer gets more quality is it moves the paper less far and creates extra passes of the print head so it can put the dots closer together. The problem with that is it takes more time. So at 1440, if you do a standard 1440 and it takes 10 passes to print 1 inch of paper, that's a theoretical. If I go to 2880, then it's going to take 20 passes. Well, in this printer, I can't go to 2880, I can go to 5760. That means it's going to take 40 passes. So to go from 1440 to 5760 is going to take 4 times as long. Now, the other thing to understand is this, if we go to quality options, then we go to superfine photo 1440, what it's doing there is a feature they used to call super microweave. And actually on the printer, when we look that up, that's still what it's called. What that does is it advances the paper less distance and makes more passes, but it still works in the 1440 dither. Now, this theoretically gives you a little bit higher quality image. And to be honest, based on the speed that I'm seeing, this probably is what Epson feels will be the default. I'm not sure why they're trying to get to this super high resolution. I need to do some more research on that because I just don't know anybody that can see, you know, even a printer that's 300 DPI like the Canon and my other Epson that runs at a 2400 by 1200 matrix. Man, they're sharp, they're great. And so by going to this higher resolution, it's going to take a long time. Now, as I mentioned, I already printed this yesterday, and I printed this at the max setting. I don't know where my camera is right there, but I printed this at the max setting, and this took almost 25 minutes to print on my printer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to print this same print, but we're going to go to Super Photo 1440 with the black enhance overcoat. And let's just see how long it takes it to print using this setting. One thing before we send it, let's just make sure we have our profile. It's loaded here. If you're not familiar with Lightroom profiles, it only shows you the ones that you choose, and you can go to other, and anything I put a check mark in here is available in that menu. So we have the right profile loaded, and we can just hit the print button because we already set up the print settings over here. And as long as we haven't done anything to change them, like pick another template, this will just send us through that same dialog box. So let's hit print. So let's take out the typing paper. And I have a sheet of 13 by 19 paper here. Again, I'm just going to spread it open, drop it in. Whoops, let's raise the back so it'll stay up. And then I'm going to just push it to center. Paper type. You don't have to do this. You can just put it in the driver and just ignore all this, but let's go ahead and do it. One thing you'll notice, there's very few choices here. And what happens is if I go to more paper types, and let's say I wanted to use cold press, once I go to more paper types and I choose one of those, it will then show up in this menu. So this little menu only ends up showing the papers that you use, which is pretty nice. We're going to use Ultra Premium Photo Luster as our paper. Go to paper sizes, A series. And this is a little interesting because usually it wants A3 or A4 or A2, but now it's actually giving me my actual measurements, which I think is an improvement. I can't remember which A2 and A3, I don't remember the sizes. So now I've put it in. You notice it says I can put 10 sheets of this paper in at a time. Hit OK. Now, like I said, I don't have to do that because I can put it all in my driver. Let's pop back over and we're going to send that file. So I'm going to go ahead and let this print. And when I get back, we're going to take a look in the menu choices and talk about how long it took to print each of those. And I have a little bit of a comparison with a p900. I'm assuming that most people are watching this video more to decide if they should buy the p900 because they have a p800 rather than because they don't know anything at all about it. Some might be that way, but anyway, I'll be back. You'll notice here my dialog box, it says it's going to be 7 minutes. Real quick, let's just show a couple things in this. This little menu up here lets me go to an information screen. I can rotate it, so now I'm seeing the photograph it's printing. If I touch it again, I get information on what's being printed, quality options, and if I go here, it gives me another screen. If I'm not using color management, but I'm actually using the Epson color controls, this shows me what controls I've set up and how I've set those up. I touch that to get rid of it again. And now as you can see through our dialog box, this is estimating taking 7 minutes to complete. And the dark color is how far. It actually finishes quicker than that sometimes, but we can go back in and find out how long it takes when we're done. So I'll be back as soon as this is printed. Okay, the printer is finished. It did take around 7 minutes. We'll know exactly here in just a second as we look at it. As far as the quality, I do have here the one I printed yesterday. And I really can't show you this on a video, obviously, but if I hold them side by side, there really should, the only apparent differences should be in, ultra fine detail. And I was looking at these yesterday. This is the second or third time I've printed it. And you can see right here, I've got this baby with a really ultra fine hair. And I can't see any difference between the two. I look at really small detail. I mean, I put on really strong reading glasses. I've got these reading glasses, which, I have to hold it about here to see stuff. Looking at all the ultra fine detail I've got up in here, I just couldn't find any real visual difference in the quality. Now, that tells me that I'm not sure what Epson is chasing this ultra high resolution, other than maybe there's some applications out there I don't know about where the printer's used, and that does count. Certainly not in continuous tone photography. So I think for most photographers, they're going to be really happy with the 1440 photo, which is good. Because I had a friend of mine print the same thing on his p800, and I'm trying to remember what it said, but it took about 7 minutes at the max quality setting of the P900. And so obviously the challenge I've got is that this print took 25 minutes, and theoretically I'm going to get better quality. I'm not sure why they didn't go ahead and put a 2880 mode in there, but I guess it's because they felt the 1440 with microwave was good enough. And, you know, I would tend to agree. The other thing I might do is just take a look and compare this to my 9570. And again, I'll hold this up. The camera's picking up the color pretty good. Obviously, it's a real challenge. But the one thing I think you can see is that, you know, the colors are really close. As I examine the two printers, now they do use the same ink set. I cannot find any difference in color tone. If you look at my, for example, the sky, I don't see you know, a lot of times if you go between two printers, you'll see a little bit of a bias toward magenta or less magenta in the sky. I don't see any bias in skin tones. And when I compare these four skin tones, and, you know, overall, there's nothing I can see as far as you know, this strip along the bottom is one reason I like this target, because I can really see at what point can I pick out detail. At what point can I see the white box as we go in the black box, so I can really see how good the printer holds shadow and highlight detail. We're going to talk about the ink set and the Gamut here in just a second, but bottom line is the two printers are virtually identical. So let's real quick take a look at the actual timing. This is another nice feature of the printer. If I go here, this little icon is the representative of the history, and this shows me a little picture of the job that I printed, and it gives me all the information here, tells me, you know, the size of the paper, 1440. This is the one we just printed, and you'll see that microwave is turned on, overcoat is turned on, and if I go down to the bottom, you'll see it took 6 minutes and 39 seconds to print that print. If I go here, and that's the one I printed yesterday, and again, we can see maximum quality, carbon black option, 5760 by 1440. Again, microwave is on. If I go all the way down, you'll see this took 25 minutes and 15 seconds. That's kind of a nice little feature. Now, if you turn the printer off, you lose the history. You know, I really wanted to address the whole quality thing so you really understand those settings and what you're going to get. And if you buy one of these printers, you're just going to have to test them. The real question would be, okay, is the 800 still better because it's a little faster? I don't think so. I think that the 1440 photo quality is going to be more than anybody needs. But, you know, I don't think that the 5760 is definitely not a reason to run out and buy this printer if you've got a really good 800 and you're happy with it. One feature that's kind of nice is this little door pops open. This gives you access to where you hook up the USB and the Ethernet. Because it's not at the back of the printer, you can actually plug those in without having to move the printer away from the wall. Most of Epson printers in the past, they've been down the bottom, the middle, and they're really a pain to get to. Unfortunately, they did do the same thing with the AC switch or plug. It still sticks out, and it's kind of a pain. It would have been nice if they would have made it a right angle plug. I guess it's still, you know, you need to leave room for this, and so maybe it's not a big deal, I don't know. Let's talk a little bit about the head itself. The head is a new design. Here's a comparison of the two, and you can see in the old head, you could definitely see the 8 rows of nozzles where the inks come out. This new head, you can't see those at all. It's a 10-color head, it has 10 inks. The other printer was an 8-color head with 9-color inks, so that's where the whole switching came in. And so theoretically, it's supposed to have a better coating on it, so it's less likely to clog. Now, the P900 and the predecessor, 3880, 3800, those have all been pretty good about that anyway. The inks themselves, basically, they're all the same, except they've renamed them. Now, I'm not saying they're the same formulation, and we'll see that in a second. We're going to take a look at the profile once a couple more things here. But they changed the name of light black and light black to gray and light gray, which actually makes more sense to me. And this printer uses what's called violet. Now, I think they found in their testing, they've tried different things. They've tried an orange and a green. And then the last printers, you could get a violet option. I think they found with Violet, they really address some gamut issues. And the one thing that Violet does is give you more accurate blue tones. At least that's what I'm feeling right now. That expands the gamut in that area quite a bit. And I think that the Violet ink is probably a good choice. Now, let's be honest, even though it's got a bigger gamut, we're going to talk about that in just a second, that's not another reason to run out and buy this printer, because I don't think visually, other than maybe a little accuracy in the blues, I don't think there's going to be a lot of difference. So real quick, let's take a look at the profiles and the gamuts and compare the two. So here we have the manufacturer profiles provided by Epson. We'll see that these are both 16-bit table-based profiles. The maximum black on the P900 is L4. And if we look here, the maximum black on the P900 is L3. So we do get a little blacker black. Now that's a pretty small amount. Let's take a look at the gamut. Here we have 731,000 is the gamut volume compared to 784,000. So that's about 50,000 more. I don't know what their percentage is. Epson says that's about 6%. The one thing I will say is Epson does make very high quality profiles now. It's really rare that you need to make your own anymore. I do it just to make sure that from printer to printer I get a really good match. Let's just take a look at the gamuts as far as on a graph. This is the gamut volume of the P900. And as you can see, if we overlay the P900 in a wireframe, anywhere that we have the white wireframe outside of the P900, that's increased colors that we can get out of a P900. Notice at the bottom, we definitely have more darker colors that are available. There are a few areas where the P900 actually excels, but notice how much we have over here in these blues. And these are the colors I'm really interested in because of accuracy in sky. Pretty good in the red and yellows as well. So a little better gamut, maybe a little more accurate blues. Not sure that's the reason to rush out and buy one, but the quality is pretty outstanding. I really like the quality of my 9570. Don't know that I like it. You know, I've been getting great prints out of Epson printers for a long time. So it's hard to really say, wow, you know, no leaps and bounds. We're kind of at a point of diminishing returns where you really aren't going to see huge differences in the output of these printers. So it's more about features. The couple of other things I might mention, the printer does come with a light. And it's pretty cool. As the prints you can see down inside, I'll throw a video up there and add it to the video. And you can turn it on even if it's not printing. So right now it's on. And while it's printing, you can actually turn it off if you don't want it. They're LEDs, so no reason to turn them off and on when you're printing. Both printers are able to handle roll paper. The P700 actually has a roll paper adapter built into it, pops open the back and it pulls out. It'll only handle the small rolls of paper that Epson makes, and of course only up to 13 inches wide. I've never actually used a smaller format printer. Another downside of the P700 is that I think the inks are only about 25 milliliter, and they're probably going to cost you another 10 to 12% per milliliter more than the P900. Now the roll paper adapter for the P900 is a fairly large unit, and it makes the printer much larger. I don't know if it's 6, 7, 8 inches deeper. The downside to that, because it's no longer a really desktop printer, but the upside is it'll handle the full-size rolls, the 3-inch rolls, and the 100-foot rolls, so you can use the lowest price paper. Now, there's no cutter in either one. You have to deal with that, but still, if you're printing panels, it's a really good option. As far as the price itself, the P900 is actually $100 cheaper than the P800. Now, granted, the P800, you could always get a rebate, so it usually ran for $200 or $300 less than the retail price. I don't think you'll see rebates on this printer soon with the pandemic and the short supply, but I do feel that at some point when things are getting a little more back to normal, you'll probably be able to get rebates on this printer as well, so it might be a little less expensive to buy out the gate. Okay, well, that brings me to the $1,200 question, which I'll try to answer whether you should upgrade or not. I think the main reason that anybody would consider upgrading would be if they do a lot of ink switching. Obviously, it's nice that head technology has gotten, their manufacturing has gotten cheap enough they can actually put more channels in their head. That's always been kind of the hard part with Epson. Their heads are much more expensive to make than Canon or HP. And so it's nice now to have that. For me, that was one thing that I really liked about it. I do a lot of document printing as well, and I always hated to switch from photo black to matte black just because I wanted to print a sheet of typing paper in a document. Sometimes I didn't bother, but it does look better. So that's one major factor. It's a little smaller, it's a little lighter. It's definitely more of a desktop printer than the other one. The touch screen is really, really nice, really helpful. The center mechanism to center the paper, much nicer than I thought it would be. It's just really quick to load a sheet of paper or stack of paper in there. The overall design, I think, is quite a bit of an improvement. So that's not a lot of reason to upgrade, but you throw it all together and it is a nice printer. Maybe you want to let your p900 wear out before you do it. Maybe you could sell it. Probably a pretty good market for those. The other question would be, should you get a 700 or the 900? And the 700 is a great printer. Do understand that the ink cost will be higher because the cartridges are smaller. And the challenge with the 700 is that, if you want to print a 17-inch by 22-inch print, you can't. For me, that's the reason I would buy the larger one, because even though I might not want to do that very often, if I think at all that I might want to do it once in a while, it would be kind of nice. Now, it is cheaper, and for a lot of people, they're just printing, a lot of 4x5s and 8x10s and maybe up to 11x14, and they don't mind having somebody else print that occasional big print. So it's kind of a budget thing. Every person's got to make their own decision. I'm glad I upgraded because I do print a lot of matte paper, and I also print a lot of glossy small prints, and so it's really going to be handy for me. I like the idea of maybe getting more accurate blues, and so that was kind of another reason I decided to give it a try. So anyway, I hope that I've answered all your questions. I'm going to be doing some research on the carbon black thing and the gloss overlay thing, and I'll probably do a separate video just on those. Try to see if I think it's really worth it. I think they'll both consume more ink, and it might not really visually provide anything at all. Now, I know that they are trying to make these printers better, but to be honest, the printed output has gotten so good that most of what you see when they come out with a new printer is pretty much just industrial design, ergonomics, not really about print quality itself, because print quality has been really good for quite some time. If you have any questions, hit me with a comment down below. I will be glad to give it a try to answer those. Sometimes I don't get a notification from YouTube. Sorry if I miss them once in a while. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so when I get that done, you can see it. I do really appreciate those that watch my videos. I know I don't get a lot of watches, but this gives me something to do. It's a lot of fun, and every once in a while I have a video that surprises me and I get a lot of watches. Anyway, hey, thanks for watching. See ya.